Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called Staying Organized as an Author. And joining me on the show is an author I'm so excited to have a conversation with. Please welcome Arianna Siddiqui. Hey, Arianna.
Hi, Demi. It's so nice to be on.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I just finished some revisions. I had some coffee, so doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm great. I was working on client work for my editing, and now I'm talking to you. So here we go. Um,
Awesome.
so before we dive into our chat about being organized, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey as an author so far.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ariana, as like you already mentioned. I am a 25-year-old analyst from Houston, Texas, but I wasn't always an analyst. Long story short, I used to actually be in publishing. I did the Columbia Publishing course in 2022, and then I landed a job at William Morris Endeavor, where I worked as an assistant. And I loved my job, but living in New York was hard. Making money in publishing is hard, and I eventually just packed up, moved back home, and got another job in oil and gas. And so that's a little bit about my professional journey. In terms of writing, I've always thought of myself as a writer. When I was little, me and my sister and my cousins and my brother, our grandmother had this huge walk-in closet, and we would sit on top of all the folded bedding, and I would tell them scary stories that I made up, and they loved it. And they always used to say, Ariana, you need to write a book. You need to write a book at the age of like 8. And so then I started taking that seriously when I left New York. And when I started my job in Houston, there was a gap. And I had previously written one manuscript that died in the query trenches, RIP. But I was like, maybe I should start something new. And that's when I had the idea for the current manuscript that landed my agent. So that goes to show, even if you do end up shelving a manuscript, there's so much hope out there. And it's just maybe wasn't the right time or the right idea or just not the right luck.
Oh, for sure. My third manuscript got me my agent. So I
Oh, no
totally get,
way.
yeah. So yeah, no, I love that. And congrats again on being agented. So excited for you.
Thank you, and I also just love everything you do, Demi. I mean, your songs are amazing. I've listened to the snippets you posted,
Aw.
and your work with your clients is inspiring, and it's just like I'm so excited to talk organization because you're like the organization queen.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Perfect segue into chatting about organization. So, first, Ariana, why do you think organization is so important?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I used to think that books just wrote themselves in the sense that you have an idea for a month, you just sit down and write. But the thing is, so many of us are not full-time authors, so many of us have day jobs, and if you want to balance any hobby with your job, you have to have some kind of organization skills, because otherwise it just becomes impossible to do everything that you want to do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it really ties down into this whole time management side of things and efficiency because the more organized you are, the more efficient you'll be and the more you can get done in a certain period of time. Deadlines are my best friend. We'll talk more about deadlines later. But I think in general, too, the more organized you are, I found myself, I've always been obsessive with organization, like extremely
Yeah.
organized ever since I was a student.
Mhm.
I've carried that with me. And I think like when you are organized, it's easier to find the files you need. It's easier to stay on track if you keep a list of things you have to do, people you need to follow up with, and just the targets that you need to hit for your book or working in time for yourself to work. If you know there's other things going on with your life at the time, you need to squeeze in book time or whatever else you're doing. I think the time management is a big part of organization and the efficiency is definitely key because you're exactly right. I think that a big thing is that we call writing like a hobby, but as soon as we transition into wanting to make it a
Mm,
career, you have to shift your mindset a little bit to recognizing, okay, we love to write. This is important to us. It's a hobby, but we need to treat it like a job. And that definitely comes with
yeah.
organization.
Yeah, and that's such a valid point. And the fact is, we don't have boss. I mean, until you get an agent and they have deadlines for you, but we don't have a boss in the traditional sense where there are like severe repercussions if we kind of like slack off or not super organized. But those repercussions do come. They just come later. There's kind of a delayed effect in not being organized.
Completely. And that leads to this whole procrastination side of things.
Mm,
When we're not
yes.
organized, we can procrastinate. And a lot of times for me, like if I'm procrastinating, it's typically because maybe I didn't give myself a hard deadline, or maybe I'm doing too many things
Hmm.
at once and it's hard to prioritize. So it feels like I'm procrastinating something, but my plate's too full. And so I think another point with the organization is like recognizing how much you can handle and what you all have going on so you can better prioritize and organize and manage everything, because if you take on too much, it's going to be extremely hard to do so.
Yeah, and speaking from my experience as someone who has ADHD and struggles with organization, what can happen when we talk about procrastination, what I find is that I procrastinate and then I hyper focus, and it's this vicious cycle. While I procrastinate till the deadline's right around the corner that I've either set for myself or my agent has set for me, and then I'll just go in a hole and focus for a week. And inevitably, other aspects of my life start falling apart, whether it's my job, whether it's exercise and my health, whether it's my mental health. And that kind of cycle of hyper focusing and procrastination is just something that I truly believe that everyone needs to nip in the bud through organization.
Mhm. Well, I'm so happy you brought that up, and thank you for being honest about that, because I'm sure there are many
Hmm.
authors out there who feel the same way. But I think you bring up an important point in the fact that when something in your life feels unorganized, it throws everything else off. And
Yes.
I think it's great how you brought up the mental health, the physical health. That's something that I've been trying to really like focus on more and work exercise into my schedule, because when I'm editing a manuscript or working on my own, I get in this zone and it's like I'm so focused on it. Sometimes I'll like feel hungry and be like, "Oh wait, I totally skipped a lunch." Like I didn't eat. And so like
Oh
being
no.
mindful of everything too.
Yes, because your body is like, oh god, I don't wanna say your body is a temple because that's so cheesy, but it is a temple. It's like if you don't maintain one part of it, the whole thing will come tumbling down.
Yeah,
I've learned that the hard way. Whatever your physical ability it is just good to get outside, point blank, honestly, and just incorporate some kind of, like, balance into your life where you're getting outside, where you're taking care of your mental health, going on hot girl walks, whatever it is that you have the ability to do, just add some variety into your life. And you do that again by being organized in the other aspects of your life so you have time to do that.
for sure. Very good point. Yeah, I think for me, like because I'm in two industries, like when I'm ever, whenever I'm
Mhm.
like extremely overwhelmed with maybe like writing stuff where I have a lot of that going on and I just need a break and I need to make time for my music, I find time for, like booking interviews or scheduling my next
Yeah.
release and things like that. It's hard sometimes when I'm in these two creative spaces because I'm an independent artist, so I'm not managed by
Mhm.
anybody. I'm not signed by anyone. I'm literally my own everything except for my team members I work with. But sometimes there have been moments, especially like when I was querying, when I was so focused on just getting an agent already, that my music was slipping a little bit and I wasn't dedicating
Mhm.
as much time. So I really had to start focusing on, okay, like these are the times I'm gonna be working on book stuff. This time is for music. Like today, I really focused on music stuff because I had to do stuff for that. And it's really important to work in that balance and treat everything equally, your job, your family, your everything that's important to you. Like find ways of prioritizing what needs to be prioritized at that moment, but not neglecting other things.
Definitely. And I think like if you could see my Google Calendar, it is color coded based on things based on my job, based on my writing, exercise, even like social events are color coded in my calendar. It is all and not to say I can't deviate from that, but at least I have an idea of like what I'm gonna do with my day.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I don't color code stuff. Shout out to you. I have like a more basic kind of way of just even just like waking up in the morning, like even if I don't write it down, like before I start doing things, I have it in my head, like, okay, like this time of day, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this after lunch, and then maybe this after dinner. Like, especially
Right.
when I was working on revisions for my agent, I had a lot of client work for Amethyst Inc. And so
Mm.
I was really like, okay, I'm on deadline for these projects, but I also need to get on submission. So I needed to balance it. So I really just divided up my day and I worked on my book like before breakfast. And then I worked on client stuff like during workday hours. And then I worked on my book at night. And so I think that's kind of the kind of balance that people with full-time jobs where they need to go into the office or whatever, like I'm not going into the office, I do freelance, but I'm still treating it as this is my daytime, my day job, and I need to fit in the writing around that. And it is a struggle at sometimes, but if we love it, we treat it like a job because that's where we're hoping it becomes to be full-time authors.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's a really good point of what you said about kind of like, and I don't want to misconstrue your point here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but about separating, your editing work for other clients versus your own writing, because
Hmm.
I think there needs to be some separation of church
Yeah.
and state here. For
Yeah.
my job,
Love
it's
it.
a very, yeah,
Go, go, go.
it's a it's a very like a high demanding job, working in oil and gas, it's stressful, and I can't afford to have my writing bleed into my day job because that'll affect my performance at work. And if I'm working while writing, that'll affect my performance at my writing, at writing. And so what I do is I go into the office, and then when I'm at the office, I don't even bring my personal computer. I just focus completely on work. And then when I'm at home, I don't even open my work computer. Those are work hours. Work was done during those hours. Great. Now it's time to write. And I think having boundaries is so important when it comes to writing and being an author.
Oh my goodness, boundaries in general. Like, I'm so happy you brought that
Yes.
up. Boundaries in general are so important. And just
Mhm.
creating boundaries in all areas of our lives, I think that's something I really did. My EP I released last year or in 2022. I don't even remember dates anymore. It was in 2022. But I basically was inspired to write that entire project because I didn't have boundaries and it got really unhealthy in like other areas of my life. So I'm
Wow.
all for setting boundaries.
Yes. I would say I can set boundaries for myself and I set boundaries for other people. Those are two different things for me. When I set boundaries for other people, I I have to tell myself that if they cross those boundaries, then it's a reflection on them, not on me for setting that boundary. And for myself, I have to say I have enough self-respect to respect the boundaries that I set for myself. That's a bit of a tongue twister, but I hope that made sense.
No, that's absolutely perfect. Perfect. Yeah, no, I think that for me personally, it's easier for me to set boundaries in my personal life. Professionally, it's a little hard because I'm super nice. I try to be there for everyone. My DMs are always open if you need anything. But I
Yeah.
found in the music industry, especially, I had many instances where people were crossing boundaries and business relationships were kind of getting into my personal life, and it made me really
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But
Mhm.
I haven't really had anything like that in the book world yet, but one thing I will say is with the editing, I think fairness is really important, and so I try to keep things pretty strict with what I'm doing with my edits and making sure that everything offered is equal for
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
and not making exceptions for anyone just to keep things fair. So I've had to draw some lines, but for the most part, pretty chill, but I definitely think professional boundaries are very important, and I try to do that as much as possible.
That's interesting, Demi, hearing your uh, experiences as an industry professional setting boundaries. Because when I got my agent, um, she's amazing and so cool. I wish there was some kind of guide, and I wonder if other authors feel like this about maintaining those healthy boundaries with your agent. Because she, gave me her phone number, but she also gave me her email address. And there are times I'm like, when do I text her? When is it appropriate to text her versus email her? Oh, it's not, like, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a universal thing,
Yeah,
or
no,
like,
it
do I
is.
email her on the weekend? Or, okay, good, good. I
Yeah,
wish we
no,
could
I
like make some
feel the
kind of
same
manual.
way. I know, there needs to be a
Okay,
manual for
good.
publishing in general. Somebody write it and just
Yes.
send it and make
Oh
it
God.
canon. We all need it.
Yes, a
No, but
master doc.
I couldn't I feel the exact same way, and it's so funny because, like, I have my agent's number too, but I've never, like,
Mhm.
texted her really, but no, it's so funny because I thought the same thing, like, "Oh, like, I'm not gonna email on a weekend," and then, like, one weekend she, like, emailed me on a Saturday night for something, so I'm like, "Oh, I guess we can email on weekends then," and then the other time I got
Yeah.
edits, and I was, like, so overwhelmed, and I think she sent them to me on a Friday, and I was like, "Oh, we can, like, talk, like, next week," and she's like, "Oh, no, like, we can talk tomorrow." I'm like, "Do you wanna talk to me on a Saturday night about revisions?" And she's like, "Yeah." So, I mean, it was definitely, like, a mind-blowing thing for me too, but, like, the way I always see
Yeah.
it, and, like, this is why I tell, like, people to email me for, like, editing stuff, like, it's
Mhm.
the other person receiving the emails, it's their decision if they want to look at their emails and when to
Yes.
respond. I see a lot of authors really concerned about not querying agents, like, at night or on Sunday, but everyone is at
Mhm.
different time zones, first of all, and also, it's their choice. If they want to answer queries on a Sunday night, that's totally chill, and they can do it. If they're like, "Nope, I don't do work on Sundays," they'll answer it on Monday. So I think from that perspective with me too, like, if I get an email from one of my clients on, like, a Saturday night and I'm at dinner or something, like, I'll be like, "Okay, I'll answer this on Monday," and that's my choice. So I think we get it in our heads that we're so nervous when we're emailing people, but we all face it.
That is such a good point, and an email's not a text, you know?
Yeah.
A text, I think, is, like, more intrusive a
Yeah, oh,
little
yeah, for
bit,
sure.
um, but, like, an email, you're totally right. They can, like, choose when to look at it, and they don't even have to open their inbox till Monday morning if they wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a thing, but with texting, honestly, like, for business stuff, for music too, like, I have so many, friends and, like, business connections in music that I have their numbers, but if I'm sending anything business related, it just
Yeah.
makes more sense to put it in an email. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know, if it's my agent's birthday, I'll text her, "Hey, happy birthday," because that's not, like, business related. But anything businessy, and, like, I just like stuff in email too, just because it's paper trail, just in general, like,
Yes.
it's just
Oh, yeah.
easier.
At
Uh.
William Morris Endeavor, we had a saying, and it was CYA, cover your ass, and my manager would say that to me all put it in writing, CYA, and it's just cover your ass.
Literally. Yeah, yeah. Emails, you got the timestamps, you got the chain,
Yeah.
and that ties into the organization too. It's all right there. Even when some of my editing clients, because I'm really active on Twitter, some people reach out to me and like messages like, "Hey, can you like do this like a full manuscript or whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure," but send me an email and we'll continue the conversation there. Just
Yeah.
because I am not doing this in Twitter messages, that's not happening. So now I want
Yeah.
to shift a little bit and chat about organization when it comes to our novels, organizing files, that kind of thing. So, what is your
Yeah.
organization process with your book?
So what I do is I work in Google Docs, and I know that's a little controversial, not crazy controversial, but a little because a lot of people prefer Scrivener. And I tried Scrivener and found that when it came to organizing, I just couldn't do it the way I wanted to. Um, and so, like, what I love about Google Docs is I can have one big folder in Google Docs, and within that folder, I have my query package folder, which is basically a document containing my query letter, synopsis, bio, and then I have my outline, which is self-explanatory, and then I have my first draft or second draft or whatever draft I'm on, and that way I have everything. So my manuscript is called "The Romantic Education of Yasmin Dar," so everything for Yasmin Dar is in that Google Drive folder. And so I just love it that way. And you get timestamps whenever edits are made. You can add collaborators, et cetera, et cetera. I also think it's very important when it comes to querying. I will say this to have a separate email. I don't know if that's controversial, but I think it's really important to either have a separate email or have your query emails routed to a new folder automatically every time you query so things don't get lost in translation. Honestly, when you get to the agenting stage, just make an author email address. That's my advice.
Yeah, okay, really good. You and I are twins because I also use Google Drive and Google Docs.
Nice.
And I don't really use Word. I just convert my stuff from Google Docs to Word when I send it. But
Yeah.
I like Google Docs. And, with the organization of the book, I have in my email, I have a folder called manuscripts. Within that folder, I have folders for all my manuscripts. Within that folder, I have like a first draft folder. And then every time I do a revision, I make copies of the chapters and I'll have like revision one. And then it'll be like chapter one dash revision one. And then it's all in the
Mhm.
revision one folder. Whenever I go to revision two, I copy my original document and move on to the new folder, revision two. I keep copies of everything because I have had experiences where I might have like cut a scene and then wanted it back. So I went back to an old version and got it so you don't lose anything. And also too, whenever you're getting like feedback from people, like you said, if you're working on any kind of like beta read or something, it's easy to add collaborators to the document if you want, or share the folder with someone, and also a folder for any kind of, query materials or whatever. Um, I do not have a different email, and a lot of people
Oh.
do suggest it, especially when querying. The reason why I wish I had mine with querying was because I developed such email notification anxiety that like every single time my email went off, it was like, oh my God, is this a rejection or is this like something else? Because I just use my personal email and I have all my email addresses filtered into like one inbox just because I have so much. It's just easier to look at it all. And so I'm like, okay, this could be music related, this could be podcast related, this could be personal related. And every single time I got an email, I was like, oh my God. And now I'm on submission, it's the exact same thing. um,
Oh,
but yeah,
man.
so I kind of wish I did a different email, but I didn't. And now I'm kind of stuck with it. But I definitely recommend it to new people.
How is being on submission, by the way?
Thank
Congratulations.
you. It's going.
Yeah, that's I've
Crossing my
heard that.
fingers. We'll see. I'm just excited to work on my work in progress. I had to pause while I revised my other one, so that's my distraction. Wow. I'm doing
That's
submission.
awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So another thing with organization is just in general, what do you think is the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome with organization, and how did you solve that?
Yeah, so I mentioned this a little earlier, but I think having ADHD has been the biggest challenge of organization. Being neurodiverse is just kind of like it feels like the odds are stacked against you when it comes to being organized. But like through therapy and these workbooks that I've gotten about ADHD, I've actually developed a couple of techniques for staying organized, factoring in my neurodiversity. And yeah, and I'd be happy to share those.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome because I'm sure maybe some people will be listening who can relate. So go for it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So what I find, I use basically what's called the Pomodoro technique, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, which I feel like I am. But basically, it's a method for staying focused. Even if you have, ADHD or some other type of neurodiversity. Disclaimer: it's not guaranteed to work. This is just what works for me. But I'll outline the steps really quickly. So step one, you pick a task. Let's say you want to revise your manuscript, for example. So you pick a task and you set up step two, which is set up a 25-minute timer. So for 25 minutes, you just work on your task, revising your manuscript until time is up. And then after the 25-minute timer goes off, you take a 5-minute break. Do not work. Absolutely, even if you're in a flow, just stop working. This is a hard part for me. And you can just read a book, watch TV, you have 5 minutes, scroll on TikTok, and then you repeat this step. You repeat this 4 times. So 4 times you'll do 25-minute timer, work on your task till 25 minutes up, take a 5-minute break. After four versions of this, take a 30-minute break and repeat until you get tired. So that is a long-winded one, but it works really, really well. And especially when you're procrastinating, because all you have to do is think about it. All I have to do is work for 25 minutes. Now, the next one I'll share, and I'll keep this one shorter, is break down things into smaller tasks. Look, when I was writing my 60K rom com, I couldn't even imagine writing 5,000, 50,000 words, much less like 60,000 1,000 words. I was like, how do people do that? Uh, and so what I did is like, okay, I'll just write 1,000 words. I can write 1,000 words. And every day I said, I'll write 1,000 words. And then after that small task, did a treat for myself, whether it's be scrolling on TikTok, reading a book, getting something from a coffee shop. It doesn't have to be like food or monetary related, but it can be like just indulging in your hobbies or something like that. So it's having this reward system for small, achievable tasks. So every day you're going to want to do these smaller, doable tasks. And those are my two big tips.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Like, I'm totally related.
Thank
I'm
you.
personally not neurodivergent, but I do like
Hmm.
very similar things just because I think, like, as we are writing books, you cannot look at that and be like, I gotta write 80,000 words.
No.
Anybody would be like, how? Like, where do I even start? I definitely like go in the small chunks. I usually work in terms of chapters. It's hard for me to
Hmm.
stop in the middle of a chapter. It has to be a clean
Mm.
seam break, or else I just can't get back into the flow whenever I go to write again. And whenever I'm like hung in the middle of a chapter or have to pause for like 2 seconds, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm like not finished with the chapter. I go like loud about it. And so I kind of look at it in terms of like, okay, I have my outline. I'm a plotter now. So I have chapter by chapter outline. I know how many chapters are in the book. Then I can look at it and be like, okay, like this is how much time I know I can write a chapter, like how quickly, and looking at how many chapters I have and kind of break down my calendar. Like, okay, I can write a chapter this day, maybe this day I'll take to revise it. And so just comes down to like the planning and recognizing yourself as an author. How much can you write at a time? How many words can you write in a certain period of time? And just in general, like your own personal style and what works for you. I love how you said disclaimer, this works for you may not work for everybody else. I think there's a lot of things that are like that, and it's just trial and error that if you feel like you need to be more organized, there are different techniques that you can personally try and see what works for you, and then once you find something that fits you, then things will go smoother.
Yes, 100%. It's basically just exploring what's out there and trying different things. Exactly what you said. I think that's really, really smart and well said.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Ariana, what even? We're approaching the end of the chat. This is
Oh my
super fun.
gosh.
I know.
Yeah. I had such a good time.
I know. So, just to wrap up, what are some final thoughts you would like to share about staying organized as an author?
Mhm. I think just give yourself grace. If you do all these things that we talked about and you try to implement boundaries and you try these techniques and you still find that things are slipping through the cracks, especially if you have a family or you have obligations that I as a single woman don't really have right now. Just give yourself grace and know that it's okay and you're going to try again tomorrow. And the fact that you're trying to be organized and trying to implement these tips means that you're already in a better position than a lot of people out there, and I think that's just lovely.
I love that. That's a perfect note to end on because I definitely think that there have been days for me personally where I have this major plan to get so much stuff done, and then it just wasn't my day. Like, you have a bad
Yes.
mental health day, or you're just like, maybe you're like sick and you just like can't with it. Like, me personally, like when I'm sick, I still try to like force myself to do stuff, which I probably shouldn't. I should just chill, but I get down on myself, like, oh, like I'm like lacking organization and this and that. But no, like I think it's really important to take care of yourself. And if you're overwhelmed and you don't get done what you planned on getting done, there's tomorrow and you can try again then. I think as authors, we have these big dreams. We want to get our agent and then we want to get our book deal and then we want to keep on going and going and going. But sometimes we forget about, like the personal things, our mental health, our physical health,
Yes.
family, friends, and those things are important as well.
Oh, so true, so true.
Fabulous, Ariana. Well, that is a wrap on our chat. And this brings us to the plot twist where I get to ask you a question you could have never seen coming. Are you ready?
Oh my god. Okay, I'm excited.
So, in your book, there is a secret society.
Yes.
So, for your question, if you got randomly recruited for the wildest secret society ever, what would you think that society would be?
Oh, that's such a good question. Honestly, I have a really weird answer. I think I think it would be a society for people who can eat an insane amount of hot sauce. Like, I can eat a disturbingly amount of hot sauce to the point that people in my life are worried about me, that they think I eat too much hot sauce, and I, like, collect hot sauces from everywhere, all over the world. I'm obsessed with hot sauce, and so I would definitely be in a secret society, like, that worships hot sauce.
That's the greatest thing. There are tears rolling down my face. I'm laughing so hard. That's perfect. Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
god. Thank you.
Wow. Well, it was a joy having you on the show. Can you please share with everybody where they can find you online?
Yes, I am way too active on Twitter, so you can find me on Twitter. So active. You can find me on Twitter, and I'm just checking my handle here. Yeah, at Arianna Sid, Arianna Arianna Sid SIDD 2D. So Arianna Sid, and you can find me on my website at ariannazararights.com.
Fabulous. You are a delight. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being
thank
on the show.
you.
You're
Thank you, Demi, for
welcome.
having me.
Absolutely. And listeners, that is a wrap on this chapter with Arianna on staying organized as an author. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider leaving Literary Blend a review and giving it 5 stars to help others just like you discover it. Also, if you have friends in the publishing industry you think would enjoy the show, please pass it along to them. Thank you for listening, and until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.